From Wall Street to Main Street, this is Lalate.
It's a big evening of evenings with incredible great news about your fourth stimulus check update of 2022. In tonight's recording, we'll go over the breaking news about your Build Back Better Act that the President of the United States talked about today, and the situation unfolding overseas, especially with Odessa, Ukraine. But we'll be looking back at the incredible great news tonight as this President of the United States sends out $80,000 in new stimulus checks. Are you ready for this money? I'll have the latest details in tonight's recording. We'll be looking at the developing details of the Build Back Better Act. The President of the United States saying it's happening. Then, SS 300, what you need to know about those incredible sums of money and what Jay Powell's doing to deal with inflation. But a new indicator for the inflation rate for Thursday could suggest we're seeing 8% coming in. What's going to happen? I'll have the latest details in tonight. Then we'll be looking at CR for Stimulus 1.0. Gasoline prices surging to record highs. We could be heading into recession. What is going on with the White House? I'll be looking at the pivot happening right tonight to potentially get gasoline routed from Venezuela back to our partner countries. But as a gas embargo in the United States being pursued, Germany says no. Fighter jets deemed dedicated now to Ukraine, and Latvia being shored up as the Baltic states are now at issue. Gasoline prices surging out of control, and wheat prices surging to 9-year highs. What is the White House doing across the land? Plus, we'll be looking at the situation unfolding as Odessa, the beautiful crown jewel of the Black Sea, could next be the target of Vladimir Putin's active invasion. What's happening tonight and the humanitarian crisis and its impact at home. Big checks and big money. But if the gas surging continues, we could see a recession in just less than 6 weeks from now. All the latest details you need to know in a brand new recording. It's a 1-hour special recording of Evenings Lalate, America's most watched show for financial news in prime time. Big money, your money, and a lot of it. Plus, economic issues unraveling by the minute. Gas prices surging to record highs since last night's recording. And wheat prices getting worse by the hour. What is the White House doing? And is the pivot to get gasoline dedicated from Venezuela too little too late? I'll have all those incredible details across the board tonight in a big broadcast from the shores of Santa Monica, California. It's Evenings. Good evening, everybody. It is a big evening here along the coast in Santa Monica, California, but internationally, the situation unraveling by the minute. Germany not coming to our allegiance on a Russian embargo of oil. And meantime, Venezuela part of the equation. Meantime, what's happening over Latvia that can impact your money at home? The oil and gas surging to record highs and wheat prices swirling. Locked in tonight's recording, and we'll be looking at the latest details of what's happening in Vladimir Putin later in tonight's recording. But first tonight, your money. And your money, lots of it. The president dedicating $80,000 in new stimulus checks. Are you ready to get it? I'm going to show you how to get those big sums of money. It's coming up late in this recording. But first, let's start with the Build Back Better Act. The president of the United States bringing up the Build Back Better Act, not just in the State of the Union address last Tuesday, but also in a new interview. In a new interview obtained by LA News, the White House says Build Back Better Act will happen. Joe Biden sat down with that new interview on Sunday and said that the incredible Build Back Better Act for stimulus recon must happen because gas prices are surging out of control. In an interview with Heather Cox Richardson, Biden says, I want to reduce the burden on American people that is being caused by gasoline prices. We'll reduce child tax poverty by 40%, and that is among the items we can do. And that is at hand. The president had said much the same when talking about Build Back Better Act during the State of the Union address. But what is the president doing with it tonight? The latest details starts right now. Build Back Better Act has 3 clusters of checks and 3 add-ons. Those incredible clusters of checks pay you a lot of money, upwards of $15,000 across the land. Let's look at those incredible checks in tonight's recording. First, they got in there the hazard pay. 1 more year across the board of the earned income tax credit and $4,000 of elder care. They got in there the children's check, $3,600, the home repairs across the land, and the big money for the children, plus a new car and money for college students, $550 checks. There's 3 add-ons of checks to the Build Back Better Act as well. And that first add-on comes from here on the shores of Santa Monica, California, where you're watching LA tonight. In that first add-on of checks, Maxine Waters got $25,000 for the purchase of your first home, given to the seller at the time of escrow by the federal government. In cluster number 2 of the Build Back Better Act, home repairs and paid leave. This is a lot of money. Paid leave is $1,700 a week if you make $70,000 or more per year. If you make $35,000 or more per year, it's $800 a week. And then split it in half if you make $15,000 or more per year. W-2, 1099, you get all these incredible sums of money. And then the home repairs in that second cluster are to weatherize your home. When we look at the next add-on of checks, it comes from Bob Casey. $250 billion of free home health care for seniors and people on disabilities got in there. The second cluster of checks, third cluster of checks, gets even better. Seniors and free internet. In that third cluster, free internet for all checks, farmers checks, independent contractors checks, and then checks for the seniors. 2 on the House, 3 on the Senate. On the House side, they got in there dental and vision checks, and then on the Senate side, medical assistance, like the lowering the eligibility age of Medicare, which is par for the course when we're talking about adding incredible checks to the Build Back Better Act. The other checks that they would add in are MSC. What is an MSC? An MSC is a monthly IRS stimulus check that go out to millions of Americans on top of the already existing checks in the Build Back Better Act that already pay you $15,000 to $60,000 of checks. Who gets it? Legislators represent that if you got a third, you would get a fourth. Single individual, $75,000 less, you get it. Married couple, $150,000 less, you get it. Double it. Family 4, quadruple it. And if you're on benefits, SSI, SSDI, you get it as well. It's not it's not income, it's not taxable, and it's offered nationwide, automatic to adult dependents as well. There you go. That is MSC. $2,000 the first month, $1,000 thereafter for up to 6 months. The senators represent the viewership of this channel. Now, when you talk about MSC, we're talking about one of many checks that would be added to the forced stimulus recon that already has $15,000 to $60,000 of checks. And that is on top of the existing money you got from third stimulus. But guess what? A new round of other checks are going out. And that is the heat of tonight's recording. $80,000 of new stimulus checks are going live starting today. And it's part of a new program announced by the White House last Friday. And you need it. And you want it. It's coming up later in this recording. But first, let's start with CR for stimulus, which is the opportunity to put a stimulus check in the continuing resolution. And what is the breaking details tonight across the land on that? The continuing resolution has an early March deadline later this week. $1.5 trillion, a discretionary funding, approved. Bipartisan support, House and Senate. Weeks of negotiations, done, dealed, signed, and sealed? Not necessarily. Tonight, the developing details is unfolding by the minute, by the hour, and it's hard to tell where it will end by the end of the week. What do you need to know tonight? The latest details tonight on this continuing resolution is that Joe Biden's resilience to ask just a penny of COVID assistance in the continuing resolution could take it off its timeline. Let's go over the details tonight. No less than 2 weeks ago, I told you that Joe Biden asked for a little bit of money for this continuing resolution for COVID, and House and Senate, Republicans, Democrats said no, and we didn't hear about it for over 2 weeks. Then last Tuesday, in the State of the Union address, the president said, I'm going to be back and ask a little bit more money. I thought at the time maybe he's asking the CR stimulus money, but he didn't say it. Well, then on Friday, the president sent a letter to Congress from his Office of Management asking for a little bit of money from the continuing resolution for COVID. Was I concerned? No. Why? Because it's a little bit amount of money, and it would not impute the ability for you to get a $2,000 stimulus check from the CR. Tonight, a different situation. Tonight, Republicans say that even 1 penny is dedicated from that $1.5 trillion of discretionary funding for COVID. They're voting against it, meaning deal off. If the president gets 1 penny for COVID in the continuing resolution, 1.5 discretionary funds, Republicans are withdrawing support and you have no deal. What's the end result? If the president doesn't back off of his demands for a penny for COVID, the CR gets rolled over to April. That's why tonight that big money that's being made available with those $80,000 of additional checks is right in front of us, and that's why we need to pounce, Purple Hawks, and get those sums of money first. Because the president's reluctance to push back on that COVID assistance in the CR is making the March 11th deadline a little bit problematic, and we don't know where it's going to land. Now, CR for Stimulus 2 and 3.0 still going to the finish line, but they don't have an inherent deadline in front of us either. What does? This Thursday. Jay Powell this Thursday will get the latest inflation number, and what will it be? And why is it important for your SS300? It's a night like you've never seen tonight on Evenings Lalate, and it's huge breaking news you're hearing for the first time tonight. Let's go over the details starting right now. The opportunity to raise your benefits up $200 a month starting right now is upon us, with inflation currently tracking at 7.5% for the month of December. Where will inflation be for the month of January? We will learn this Thursday. Inflationary data is released a month after it happens. So this Thursday, the new inflation numbers are going to be released. And I've been predicting it'll be 8% for the month of January. Last Friday, analysts said the January number would be 7.5%. Today, they're saying 8%. This is good news for you, because if Joe Biden makes the phone call, you could swap out COLA for inflation today and lock in an 8% increase. An 8% increase would raise your benefits up $200 a month starting right now, not just for this month, not just for this year, but lifetime. In view of all the economic developments unfolding right today, you need that additional $200. The $200 was part of Joe Biden's presidential platform, reaffirming his presidential campaign that he would replace COLA with inflation if he became president. And by raising your benefits with that new benchmark of inflation, it helps. But you want him to do it before Thursday, or at least before May. Why? Jay Powell, your head of the Federal Reserve, is dealing with a problem, and that problem is inflation. Inflation tracked at 7.5% the month of December. January's numbers likely come in at 8% and will be revealed this Thursday on this channel. If inflation's at 8%, Jay Powell's bringing it down. But how quickly? And why is this very problematic? Jay Powell has 5 meetings to potentially reduce inflation by raising interest rates, a 1/4 basis point. The first meeting just in days from now. And Jay Powell already indicated he's reducing inflation by an initial March meeting of a 1/4 basis point. But that's where we are to start. Then Jay Powell says he may ramp up even higher if inflation is even more robust. But is inflation not really the big issue tonight? Here's what's at issue. Later in this recording, I'll show you that Jay Powell has a double problem. One, reducing inflation, but more importantly, not reducing it too quickly because we have an energy shortage. And that energy shortage could put us in recession as early as next year, and we will know the results of that as early as 6 weeks from this recording. What's going on? It's coming up in just a second. Let's go back to that SS300. Joe Biden needs to make that phone call right tonight and make the call to the Social Security Administrator. Replace COLA with inflation. That will raise your benefits up $200 a month right now and then $100 later this year. You need those incredible benefits across the land, and this would solve the situation right at hand. SS300 should happen right now rather than later this year when inflation is going to be lower. Remember, once your benefits lock in a higher rate, you're at that higher rate now. Good news. Don't wait for inflation to go down before you lock it in. More about Jay Powell's problems with dealing with inflation later in this video. But the big exciting news is that $80,000 of new checks are going out. And those $80,000 of new checks are in addition to the incredible money that viewers have gotten from third stimulus. Yes, in addition to the money from Build Back Better, in addition to the money for CR for stimulus. So how do you get it? What are they? Let's go over the details starting right now. $80,000 of new stimulus checks have been approved by the White House in a new program for homeowners. It's a grant program, and if you're a member of this channel, you got the details before anyone else in the membership newsletter that goes out Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The grant program for homeowners will allow you about $15,000 to $80,000 of free money. Let's go over the incredible details starting right now. Number one, it's a grant program. You don't have to pay it back. Number two, it's underwritten by the federal government. Number three, it's for homeowners, all types of homeowners. So if you're on benefits, SSI, SSDI, Social Security, or railroad benefits, you qualify for it if you're a homeowner. Moreover, the eligibility is just like a stimulus check. Single individual, $75,000 less, you qualify. Married couple, $150,000 less, you qualify. The great news is that the money is for items that we often talk about on this channel, but never had relief for, like property taxes, like homeowners insurance, like association fees. Great sums of money that you often wanted assistance for, but never had it. Now it's going live. But how is it going live? Well, it looks a little bit like 2020 on this channel. In the early days of this channel, I helped millions of Americans get unemployment assistance state by state. But every state was different. Some states went live before other states, and some states were delayed for weeks. In the case of this program, it's run on a state-by-state basis. Every state will have its own website and will administer it locally. So while your state may be live, another state may not be live. The money starts today, and yet certain states may not have their websites available for days to come. I'll be tracking the situation, giving you updates as the money goes live. It's $15,000 to $80,000 per household. It's your money, and you need to pounce, Purple Hawks. This is incredible, great news. We'll feature more about these big sums of money and how to get third stimulus in the second half of this video. Plus, we'll be looking back at the situation unfolding overseas. Gasoline prices surged overnight to the worst levels in the modern day era. We haven't seen anything like this since the 1970s. And this is as concerns as Venezuela is being approached to ramp up its production to save the situation. The United States thought that it could rely on partner countries to agree upon a ban of Russian oil. But late today, Germany said, no, we're not doing it. What's going on? All the latest details tonight and how it impacts your wallet. Meantime, could the United States be in a recession by 2023? And why is wheat and oil now the indicator of where we're heading? Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine is not only causing human catastrophes, but economic catastrophes. And tonight we'll go over the details of what's unfolding and what's being done and not being done by the White House. Then we look back at what's happening in the humanitarian corridor, as millions of refugees are trying to flee into Poland and aren't able to go. What's next on the horizon is new fighter jets are being delegated to the area, and the Baltic states, now concerned that Vladimir Putin's act of aggression could be them. And then Odessa. We look back at Odessa, first feature on this channel no less than a week ago. It remains the focal point of Vladimir Putin tonight. And while Odessa looks beautiful in these photos, it may not look that way tomorrow. What's going on, all the latest details, and then the humanitarian crisis. As we've been featuring millions of refugees fleeing into Poland. But tonight we feature another horrible story. Millions of refugees stuck in their homes, starving to death because they can't get out of Ukraine. What's going on, all the latest details in tonight's recording, and what Vladimir Putin is next at issue with. Then we'll be looking back at the unfolding issue of oil and gas and why. Last night at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, for the first time in the history of this channel, I sent out an economic alert. What was that economic alert? And why was it so troubling at the time to make it for the membership of this channel? What has happened since that economic alert sent out last night on this channel? And what's the situation tonight with gas prices? Those details coming up in the second half. But first, here's a little bit about the community page. I'll be back with you in a little bit with more checks, third stimulus checks, CR for stimulus checks, and those $80,000 of checks. But first, here's a little bit about the community page.
If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join Lalate Daily for the excitement of the new Lalate live daily. The excitement starts on mornings Lalate at 9 a.m. Home Lalate returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons Lalate at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on Lalate.
Good evening, everybody. The continuation of Evening Lalate starts right now as Venezuela is being approached to give gasoline to our partner countries. What will happen, and why did Germany not come along with a Russian embargo, a Russian block of import of oil? The latest details on that, plus the threat against those Baltic states tonight. A lot of breaking details. It's a big evening's Lalate, and we're just getting started. Let's start back with the Build Back Better Act and the latest comments from the President of the United States. In that major interview obtained by LA News from Sunday, the President says Build Back Better will get passed. And he says that millions of Americans need it because we have a time of economic uncertainty. Well, the President should really step back from trying to take a little bit of the money from that CR for stimulus for COVID. Why? The negotiations for that CR for stimulus, $1.5 trillion of discretionary funds, was done as a result of negotiations, House versus Senate, Republicans versus Democrats, over the last few weeks. Solidified. And in fact, they told the president no less than twice before, we're not giving you any money for COVID. Republicans and Democrats both alike. What's the latest comment by Chuck Schumer, Majority Leader of the Senate tonight, about that continuing resolution? He said the negotiations are still unfolding and they're going very well. Excuse me? Negotiations were done on the CRs, Chuck, no less than 2 weeks ago. So that's the latest details on that front, the CR for stimulus, with the president really trying to take a little bit where he shouldn't be taking and potentially rolling the CR into April. We'll be watching this over the next 72 hours and see whether the president backs up. The rent program that will pay $15,000 to $80,000 of stimulus checks for you is desperately needed by viewers of this channel. And this is exciting because it covers items many viewers have asked for coverage over the last year and a half. Homeowners insurance, association fees, utilities fees, home repairs, and even mortgage payments. Now, let's make very clear, this is in addition to all those incredible checks covered on this channel. You got third stimulus, you got second stimulus, you got fourth stimulus potentially coming. This is in addition to it, not in replacement. Again, the application is application-based on a state-by-state basis. Want to learn about it? Want the link to it? Want to sign up? Go to the membership under this video. Become a member and get that incredible newsletter Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, that first added the incredible details plus the map of how to get the application in the newsletter starting last Friday. Tonight's newsletter comes out at 7 p.m. via the YouTube alert system and the Lalate alert system. When we look at Build Back Better Act and the forced stimulus recon, the next question is what's happening with inflation. And this is where situations folding dramatically by the hour. The inflationary situation is very problematic tonight for Jay Powell because his job is to bring inflation down. It's currently tracking at 7.5% for the month of December. And while Wall Street last Friday said that an 8% number this Thursday would scare people, they're now content to understand that Thursday's CPI number may come in at 7.5%. What does this mean for you and your benefits? Swapping out COLA for inflation right today would lock you into that higher benefits, raise you about $200 a month right now, and then Jay Powell would have time to reduce inflation. But tonight, a permutation like we never saw before. And that permutation stems from something I was shocked to even report in a special alert to members last night on this channel. What's going on? It's the potential inversion curve caused by surging gas prices overnight. The detail at the moment tonight, folks, is that Jay Powell thought in raising interest rates in a March FOMC meeting starting this week, he would only have one factor to deal with: inflation and or just Vladimir Putin. Tonight, he has multiple equations. He has gasoline. He has world gasoline problems. And then he has other disruptions by potential embargoes that were not even at issue last night. What's going on? Well, let me tell you what's going on. Jay Powell had a task at hand in December: reduce inflation, because you can't have inflation indefinitely high. 7.5% for the month of December, 8% likely for the month of January. We will learn this Thursday. Jay Powell had two elements to deal with no less than 7 days ago: inflation and Vladimir Putin's impact on inflation. Tonight he has more parts of the equation. He has gasoline and United States senators' impact on gasoline as it impacts inflation. Then he has foreign leaders and their impact on inflation. And then he has Venezuela. And then he has Iran. Should I continue? What's going on tonight? The problem is that Jay Powell has to determine where this economy is going by more than two factors, and that may put the Fed in a bind and overexert inflationary resilience. Let me explain what's going on. Jay Powell's trying to bring down inflation based upon the current growth projections of the United States. But those growth projections may be wrong if Vladimir Putin's acts of aggression impact the United States economy far larger than we thought no less than 7 days ago. Issue number one, oil. Issue number two, wheat. Issue number three, other industries that we haven't assessed risk for that potentially would stall up, slow down, contract, and not deliver growth in the year 2022 as initially thought. Jay Powell doesn't want to come in with inflationary pressures by raising interest rates too strong, because guess what? That would cause stagflation, unemployment. What's at issue? The latest details starting right now, and it starts with oil. Last night, viewers of this channel got that major alert from the LA Alerts, the first of its kind in the middle of the night. What's going on? Gas prices surging out of control overnight on this channel. A week ago, the price for gasoline in the United States was $3.62 for unleaded nationwide. Then what happened after that was that the price of gasoline surged to a whopping $4.11 overnight. Troubling? Yes, very troubling. And with no potentially issue at sight, what would happen next? Here's what you need to know. The White House is trying to pivot, but its pivot may be a little bit too late and a little bit too unclear. And with Jay Powell with very few elements to fix the situation, what's coming up next? Let me give you the details you need to know tonight. The situation tonight is that gasoline prices are out of control. And if they cannot be stabilized, there's a big R word on the horizon. For the first time tonight on Evening Delight, I'm going to tell you something I don't want to scare you with, but it's the truth. Many analysts, including myself, believe that if the current gasoline prices at the time of tonight's recording, March 7th, 2022, remain in place 6 weeks from today, we will be in inflation, we will have inflation, and we will be in a recession in 2023. Yes. Analysts now believe that the current numbers for gasoline in the United States are not sustainable for more than 6 weeks. And we stay at the current levels for more than 6 weeks, we're going into recession for 2023 and 2024. The numbers are troubling. Let me tell you where the numbers are tonight. Gasoline tracked on this channel for over a week ago was at $3.62. Last Friday surged to $3.83. Tonight, $4.11. In fact, it's moving so quickly that last night's Sunday broadcast had an analyst saying that maybe this week will go to $4. Tonight's at 4.11, up 40 cents in 1 week. Again, analysts, including myself, now believe that that price point is not sustainable for more than 6 weeks, and if we stay at that price point, we go into recession next year. Internationally, the price of Brent crude started out of control as well. Brent crude is being impacted by Vladimir Putin as well. What is Brent crude? This is the international benchmark for gasoline prices. Brent crude surged to its highest levels in many, many years. 2008, we last saw the numbers. In fact, if you've been with this channel and watched Evenings Lalate, America's most watched financial show in prime time over the last week, I told you that $100, $110 a barrel for Brent crude is not sustainable. Where is it tonight? It's not 110. It's not 120. It's been 130 throughout the day. Folks, this is very bad news. What's going on and why did this happen? It first happened with Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Then it happened, moreover, on Friday when Nancy Pelosi issued a statement about what legislators may do in the United States to deal with the situation. It unraveled even further later today as Germany said, I'm not being part of that move by the White House. It got more confused as Venezuela gave us a silent treatment on the situation, and it got more problematic as OPEC nations didn't help us last week. Let's go over all the incredible details you need to know, starting right now with domestically the issue at hand. The issue at hand is that gasoline prices are determined by quantity and availability. The least amount of gasoline available, the more expensive. Pretty simple concept. So what's going on? There's less gasoline available because Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. How does it impact us domestically in the United States? Not so much directly because only 5% of the United States gasoline is from Russia. 95% is from somewhere else. In this case, our gasoline is not dependent upon Russia. But our partner allies, like, for example, Italy, are heavily dependent upon Russian oil. So what happened back in October? This is breaking news you're hearing for the first time tonight on Evenings. Back in October, this channel reported to you that there was 100,000 Russian troops at the Ukrainian border, and that this could be the major news story of 2022. What also happened? The White House saw the same troops, and the White House actually dispatched Treasury to do an analysis of the situation and told them, look at what's going on with potential economic disruption, specifically in the case of gasoline and oil. The White House told Treasury, if Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine, what would it do with the price of gasoline nationally and internationally? And what can we do as a family, domestically at home, to solve the situation? Treasury found that at the time there would be a potential disruption, but didn't have a contingency in place. Let me tell you what's going on. What's going on is that since October of 2021, you and I knew that there may be a displacement of oil in the market. Meaning, since October, when I told you Vladimir Putin may invade Ukraine, that there may not be Russian oil available for our partner allies. Because if Putin invades Ukraine, no one wants his oil. Pretty simple? Yes. So since that apparent problematic permutation in October last year, has the White House gotten any allegiance from any partner country to pivot? Get their oil not from Russia, but another country? No. In fact, the White House has not done this at all. It understood the problem with that order from Joe Biden to Janet Yellen in October last year to pivot and figure out how to deal with a potential oil crisis if Vladimir Putin invades Ukraine, but had no diplomacy agreement, no G20 agreement, no economic agreement with partner countries to pivot and say, if Putin invades Ukraine, where are we going to get our oil from? Not a U.S. citizens, partner countries. They didn't have that deal. And so what happened? Over the weekend, Anthony Blinken, your Secretary of State, went overseas and discussed the importance of having partner countries consider a ban on Russian oil. Good, but it didn't go as he planned. Because what happened? While the United States saw a big movement on this on Friday, Germany today said no deal. We ain't doing that. Why? Let me tell you, Germany, Venezuela, and the equation that impacts us internationally starting right now. At issue is it's one thing to say Americans will find another way to get American oil, but it's another way to say where our partner country is going to get their oil. Let's deal with our situation first. In the United States, we only import about 5% of our oil from Russia. On Friday night, Nancy Pelosi issued a letter to members of the House saying, I'm going to introduce legislation to ban the import of Russian oil. Great. It's a moral move. It's a humanitarian move. We have to do it as a society in the United States. Ban the import of Russian oil. Good. But it's not an economic issue. It doesn't impact us economically at home because we only import about 5% of our oil from Russia. Now, why did that statement cause international oil prices to surge out of control? Not because of economics of it, but because they thought, international analysts, that other countries would follow suit and would say, you know what? If the United States bans import of Russian oil, then maybe Italy will ban import of Russian oil, and other countries like Germany. So immediately, oil prices shot up. Remember, less oil, prices go up. And immediately, this saw a massive surge to $130 a barrel for international crude, Brent crude, and domestically, prices going to $4 at the pump. Now, it got more problematic, and here's where it gets troubling. The White House and the Democrats, and potentially the Republicans as well, are going ahead with a ban of Russian oil. But they've not reached out to anyone in West Texas to ramp up production of domestic production here in the States. Let's look at what's going on. We have the opportunity to increase production of our gasoline by Americans for Americans in West Texas. But that conversation hasn't happened. And in fact, could have happened last October. And in fact, has been addressed to the White House and has gotten no response. In the last week, West Texas oil producers have said, we're waiting for the White House to say, should we ramp up production? And we haven't heard from them. Remember, if West Texas increases production of gasoline domestically, then our price of gasoline at the pump comes down. We solve our problem. We don't go into recession. Our economy remains stable. Simple, very simple. Why has the call not been made? You know why. Because certain parts of the Democratic Party are focused on clean energy, and ramping up production of gasoline is against that platform of clean energy. But it's misguided because ramping up production of gasoline short term, it does not defeat the focal point of clean energy. You can still do clean energy and ramp up production short term. You can still ramp up production of gasoline in West Texas short term and still be dedicated to the platform of clean energy. And that would alleviate our dependency on other economic events. This is why the situation is very unfounded, that the White House has not gotten production ramped up domestically. That's the first part of the equation that doesn't make sense. The second part of the equation is the international part that's even more problematic. Let's take a look back at what happened in October. In October, we knew that gasoline was going to be a potential issue if Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. You knew it, I knew it, the White House knew it. They actually had the order from Joe Biden to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. So at that time, that moment of epiphany happened. What did the White House do with its partner countries? It should have reached out to partner countries saying, hey, Venezuela, you got a lot of oil. We may have a Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022. I want you to ramp up production or release some of your reserves so that countries like Germany won't have to have oil from Russia if Putin invades Ukraine in 2022. Can you please do that? White House never had that conversation. In fact, White House still has never had that conversation. In fact, the White House has been very slow in figuring out how to get allegiances with countries that could get a corporate tax rate minimum done in less than 2 weeks in 2022. Yes. Back in 2022, I featured on this channel how Janet Yellen and Joe Biden got a corporate minimum tax rate agreed upon by the G20 countries in less than 2 weeks to pass the third stimulus recon. So the White House, when they want to pass a recon, can do things very quickly. But in the case of an oil agreement, which is very simple, agreeing to pivot, agreeing to have Venezuela provide gasoline to Germany instead of Russia to Germany, agreeing to Venezuela to provide gasoline to Italy instead of Russia to Italy. White House hasn't done this. White House has been focused on strategic alliances like Latvia and the Baltic states. Our Secretary of State went overseas yesterday to shore up the Baltic states that could potentially be invaded next by Vladimir Putin. Make sure that fighter jets are dedicated. All good, but what about the economic team of the White House? Janet Yellen, Treasury, the Department of Interior to deal with surging domestic trade items like corn, soybeans, and wheat. None of this analysis is being done. Nothing is being done to short the allegiances. And this is a very important pivot. Tonight, a little bit of glimmering hope. First, the White House reportedly is reaching out to Venezuela finally, after me talking about this for nearly 2 weeks on this channel. Venezuela is the major producer of gasoline, and the White House is now reaching out to Venezuela to potentially provide gasoline to those partner countries that are desperately in need of it. Number two, the White House is trying to shore up that Iranian nuclear arms agreement that would basically, if solidified, get Iranian oil back into the pipeline. Elsewhere, the White House has done nothing with those OPEC plus countries, like the United Arab Emirates, that last week met and refused to increase production. These have been partner allies with the United States, and the White House has done nothing to get them to release part of their strategic reserves and increase production across the board. Let's be very frank. In the United States, while Nancy Pelosi announced a ban of Russian oil as a potential new piece of legislation, Germany said we're not doing that. And this is after Anthony Blinken thought that all those partner allies were going to get off of Russian oil overnight. They can't. Let's be frank. There's no alternative set up. Had the White House had an alternative for Russian oil set up back in 2021, when a potential invasion of Vladimir Putin's of Ukraine was clearly apparent, the White House would have had the opportunity for those partner countries to get off of Russian oil if Putin invades Ukraine in 2022. Now that Putin has invaded Ukraine in 2022, those partner countries are not ready to get off of Russian oil because they don't have an alternative set up. Again, this is small-sightedness by the White House. Too slow to move, too slow to act, and now the situation is very troubling. How troubling? Tonight, I don't want to scare you, but I got to give you the reality. A series of new analytic reports tonight suggest that at current base prices of where gasoline is tonight, we can only sustain the current levels for 6 more weeks. How does this translate? And what will happen? Let's go over the numbers starting right now. Analytic reports now tonight suggest that at $4 a barrel, $4 of gasoline in the United States is not a level that can sustain in our economy until May. If you see the United States still at $4 a gallon, which is where it is tonight, $4.11, domestic, unleaded, basic, nationwide average in the month of May, we're heading a recession. And that recession will start in 2023 and potentially go into 2024. It's a fate that the White House needs to understand is right here. Timeline, calling, get your calendars out. Because we got only about 4 weeks to deal with this. Germany saying not going to get off of Russian oil. Venezuela not particularly yet aligned to provide oil to our partner countries. And the situation for Iran are not short up at all. So where is that oil going to come from? It's good that we're banning Russian oil in the United States, but it's not good that we have not asked for those partner countries to get an alternative to Russian oil because they need it right now. It's not good that the White House hasn't gotten West Texas to ramp up production as well. Very, very fluid. And if that situation is not dealt with quickly, guess what happens? Gasoline stays where it is, 6 more weeks, and we're in recession next year. Understand how quickly it's been moving on this channel. Evenings at Lalate last week was featuring Russian invasion of Ukraine, bringing the price of Brent crude from $200 to $210, saying that's not sustainable. Tonight's $230. Last week, gasoline domestically $362. In 1 week, tonight $411. Not sustainable. Not sustainable for 6 weeks. We're in early March, and if we're at these levels by May, we're in a recession. It gets even worse. It gets even worse because this guy, Jay Powell, can't do all this. You can't expect the man to. As head of Federal Reserve, his job is to bring down inflation. He saw inflation surging in December without Vladimir Putin as an equation, part of the equation, without surging gas prices, without taking Russian oil out of the equation, without uncertainty about Venezuela, without uncertainty about Iran, without uncertainty about Germany and Russian oil. Now Jay Powell has to deal with surging inflation, but is unsure whether the economy in the United States will stall out. Yes. What's at issue is that Jay Powell needs to pivot and figure out, wait a second, the world events are changing so dramatically, I don't want to bring down inflation too quickly, because guess what? I'm going to send this economy into a potential recession or stagflation if I come in too strong in April with our interest rate spikes. This Thursday, we're going to see the latest inflationary number, and it's likely to come in at 8%, but that doesn't solve the situation because Jay Powell has to pivot and find something to deal with right tonight. And he can't if the White House doesn't have guidance on where those allegiances are going on oil. And we're just getting started. There's wheat. Wheat has been a major topic of this channel since day one, and it's big tonight. The wheat crisis is surging out of control, and again, this is Vladimir Putin's acts of aggression in Ukraine. Ukraine is a major exporter of wheat, and that wheat is no longer available in the pipeline. That wheat comes from the Black Sea, like Odessa, a very rich, fertile area, an agrarian area. And now those men of Ukraine are not harvesting wheat, they're defending their homeland. And as a result, the wheat is not available for distribution. That's bringing the price of wheat to record highs in the United States never seen in nearly 10 years. It's a risk the White House has not assessed. In a new interview of Reuters, the White House said it has not assessed the risk of wheat prices surging out of control then, in October, or even tonight. Again, why has Treasury not dispatched an entire team to analyze the situation and analyze if that wheat disruption would bring us into a very problematic situation? And those partner countries, same problem. They need to pivot, just like they have to pivot with oil, they have to pivot with wheat, and they don't have a situation sized up. Again, these are items the White House's strategic alliances with the Western allies should have ready when Vladimir Putin started heading to Odessa. Tonight he's outside of Odessa once again and may bomb Odessa. But he may do even more economic destruction internationally, including disruption of the wheat industry. What's the latest you need to know about Vladimir Putin tonight, both domestically, internationally, and the human rights issue at hand? Vladimir Putin's acts of aggression and invasion of Ukraine continues to grow by the minute and by the hour, and the humanitarian crisis is getting worse by the moment. Where is Vladimir Putin advancing, and what is troubling across the board? It was over the weekend that I said to the viewership of this channel, I didn't believe that the corridors issue could remain a front page story for more than 24 hours and not get reaction and movement and intervention by the partner allied countries. I was wrong. They haven't done anything. I can't imagine how the NATO alliance countries can sit back and watch Vladimir Putin not honor the safe corridors. Let's go over what's happening. In his potential invasion of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin is not allowing Ukrainian women and children to evacuate to neighboring countries like Poland and Hungary. So initially, when negotiation meeting between Ukrainian and Russian officials begat a deal, a series of corridors in which women and children could flee to a neighboring area. And then, when they went, they saw they couldn't. The two teams went back to the negotiating table. They were assured that Russians would not interfere once again. They did. 3 attempts since then, 3 blockades by Russian officials. And it's not just a blockade. They're killing people. Women and children are leaving their homes with their last belongings, going into a corridor which is much like your normal road or your highway to head to the Polish or Hungarian border, and then they're being blocked. And then they're seeing tanks. And then they're being told to turn around and go back home. And in some cases, they're dying. Tonight, the situation is far worse than it was even 24 hours ago on this channel. A 17-second clip was released in the last few hours that was filmed by a resident in an apartment building where people were trying to flee in the evacuation corridor, and Russian tanks were in front of the apartment building. 5 of them, opening fire and killing people on camera. a violation of human rights, a violation of agreement for the safe quarters against women and children who are unarmed, grandmothers, some pregnant women, and in towns like the town of Mariupol. Problem number one, people can't get out. Number two, when they try to get out, they're being killed. Problem number three, in staying barricaded in their home, waiting for the time to get out, they're now starting to starve to death. The situation is unfolding because it's been 10 days, we now know, according to Mirahel Hodel, spokesperson for the ICRC, the International Red Cross. It's been 10 days. Without water, without electricity, living in shelters, shelters are packed. The essentials are missing. A lot of people needed health care as well. People are starting to literally starve to death in their homes because they can't evacuate because of the Russian occupation right outside their building. I can't believe at the time of this recording that the NATO alliance countries have not figured out a solution to this problem. The NATO alliance countries, their agreement is to protect NATO countries. Ukraine is not one of them. But can they sit back and watch the human rights violations unfold time after time and not allow the safe harbor of Ukrainian citizens to Poland and Ukraine and see it unravel worse after worse? It's 10 days of occupation so far. And as more days go on, less food, less electricity, and more casualties, more deaths for people who can't even leave their homes. What are the NATO alliance countries doing? People want to know, including myself. The Baltics, that could be the next focus of Vladimir Putin. The Baltic states are bordering also Russia. And overnight, Anthony Blinken, your Secretary of State, went to the Baltic states to ensure that NATO forces are aligned and in position in the events that Vladimir Putin takes an act of aggression against them. We continue to monitor the situation with deployment of new fighter jets like the F-35 to Lithuania. Important various pieces of equipment have been deployed here and other states in Lithuania. Good. But the situation is very fluid across the board. The White House doing some things and not doing other things. Number one, the White House not solidifying a deal with Venezuela or OPEC plus countries to release more gasoline to our international Western allies. They're dependent upon Russian oil. They need to get off Russian oil. And if they don't have an alternative, they will continue to buy Russian oil. It's good that we're banning it back domestically. But Germany can't get off Russian oil because it does not have an alternative ready. This is part of an economic alliance of those partner countries. We need to do that as much as we do strategic alliances. Number one. Number two, the White House not particularly finding a solution domestically as well, with West Texas able to ramp up production, but the progressives, with their climate agenda, not wanting to raise up production at all. The president of Fire by Me on social media last weekend, tweeting about for you to go buy a new $80,000 electric GM-made pickup truck. That's not the itinerary right tonight. The itinerary is to bring down gas prices. And when we can all afford a $70,000 electric vehicle, we'll talk about it, Joe. The other alternative is what to do with grains, soybean, corn. Vladimir Putin is circling Odessa. What is he going to do? First, he's going to try to take the town of Odessa and control the number one port out of Ukraine. Then he's going to try to destabilize international economies like the United States that are dependent upon grain and wheat. Now, we may not import grain to the United States, but our prices of grain and wheat are surging in the United States to 8-year highs because there's a threat that there will be no more wheat coming out of Ukraine. When you look at the wheat industry, it's a little bit more problematic and more confusing than oil. Oil's simple. The current oil situation unfolding in Ukraine and Russia is not as bad as it's going to be until late March. Then it's going to be worse. Why? The current gasoline arriving in ports right now was bought before Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. The current gasoline that will arrive in late March, or won't arrive in late March, is the result of after the invasion. In the case of wheat, it's a little bit more problematic. If there's no farmers to till the wheat because they're defending their homeland of Ukraine right now, then the wheat is lost not just this season, but next season, or several seasons to go. And season after season of wheat disruption could bring wheat prices far higher than just 1 week, 1 month, but several years. Meantime, President Zelensky is worried tonight that the beautiful town of Odessa may be bombed by Vladimir Putin. You look at the gorgeous opera house along the coast of Odessa tonight. It remains intact, much like how you're looking at it right now. But with Vladimir Putin not honoring safe corridors to Poland and Hungary, what is the magnitude of the madness of Putin tonight? We do not know if his madness involves merely just crippling economics of Ukraine or desecrating the cultural heritage of the beautiful town of Odessa. Tonight, a lot of questions, but not particularly a lot of answers when it comes to the strategic alliances. Shoring up of strategic alliances in the Baltic states, delivering new fighter planes to Poland so that those fighter planes can be delivered to Ukrainian military defense, Germany not on board on blocking Russian oil, Venezuela not committing to releasing more oil, and the White House not shoring up a deal to get oil for our partner countries. Domestically, no ramping up production for oil, OPEC plus countries not dedicating more oil, in fact saying they're not. Wheat and grain prices, not a risk assessed by the White House and not assessed by Wall Street. And if Wall Street has assessed the risk, then who's assessing it? I'm not. It's the job of Wall Street to assess the risk and all the situations at hand, because guess what? If Vladimir Putin keeps your gasoline prices at $4 a barrel, even though you only import 5% of his gasoline, he's sending you in a recession. It's a situation at hand. And the situation at hand is far more problematic than thought initially. What do you need to know to go into tonight's recording? Tonight, a lot of money and a lot of uncertainty with where this economy may be in 6 weeks from now. First, $80,000 in new stimulus checks available. Go to that membership newsletter tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and learn about it. Number two, third stimulus still paying out money. Number three, CR for stimulus, waiting to see if Joe Biden's going to back off on that demand to take a little bit of COVID money. Next, SS300, that big sums of money that Joe Biden can do by making a phone call. Jay Powell, tasked with the question of what to do if interest rates this Thursday, likely to come in at 8%, then no CPI number on Thursday. If it's the case, then what does Jay Powell do for March? Can't come in too aggressive on his number, and if he comes in too aggressive, he's sending us into stagflation, folks. Very problematic across the board. Meantime, the opportunity to get third stimulus is still there, and the opportunity to get that money in view of the events of Vladimir Putin still apparent. But the problematic question mark that remains on my mind is, what is NATO doing with those corridors? If NATO is sitting back and saying we're protecting our partner countries and we're protecting our partner alliances and we're guarding our partner grounds of Lithuania and Latvia, can you keep on saying that while you watch women and children lose the ability to have food, water, and electricity in their homes for 11 days and do nothing? The beautiful city of Odessa, much like a week ago when I first made this recording, I said, I don't know what Gershon will look like by the time the show airs. Tonight, it may be the same situation with Odessa. I don't know at the time of this broadcast, when it airs, an hour after recorded, if the town of Odessa will look the same as it looks tonight. But we have to hope it does. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of Ukraine and those refugees who have safely got to Poland and Romania and Hungary, and everyone that's still trying to get out. Keep them in your prayers tonight as the situation continues.